Hello, everyone. Welcome to On the Move, a show where we share transportation, sales, and marketing success stories. I am Jennifer Corpus Romaine, Executive Director at the Transportation, Marketing, and Sales Association, which is a trade nonprofit educating and connecting marketing and sales professionals in transportation and logistics. And today on the show, I have Mariana Vieth, Marketing Director at Kase and WSI. I'm really excited to have you on the show. We were just laughing before we went live that we are doing this interview in between your vacation and my vacation. But transportation never sleeps. So here we are doing our interview in the small pocket of time. But welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm great. I'm happy to be back and well rested, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed for this interview.
Awesome. I do want to talk about your experience in transportation, kind of what landed you here and what's kept you in the space.
So that's a great question to start because it's part of the reason that I joined the TMSA at all, is because I don't have a ton of transportation experience. I've been in the supply chain space and marketing for a little over 4 years. Focusing primarily on warehousing and fulfillment. And then there was a transportation portion of the business, but about a year and a half ago, we made an acquisition in the transportation space. We, kind of raised some of our goals. And so I knew I needed to step up my game. So joining TMSA was part of my trying to get more exposure, trying to connect with more people. But my actual background has nothing to do with logistics, which I've recently found is a lot of people's stories. Like they didn't go to school for supply chain, but they somehow landed here. And that's what happened to me too.
Yes, I feel like people either are lifers, like their families did it, and so they did it, or you happened into it. You are slowly seeing more people going to supply chain
Yes.
in school, which is cool, like the people coming in. But I like that it's a good mix. Everybody has their own story, which is pretty awesome.
Well, and especially in sales and marketing, how many people went to school for B2B sales and marketing?
Mm-hmm.
Just
Mm-hmm.
not really a degree people are going to get. So it's a
Right.
unique and exciting space to be in. I'm actually, I like to joke that I'm a classically trained social worker who became a not classically trained choreographer, dance instructor for a decade, running a small business with my friends, and then a non classically trained supply chain B2B marketer. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
I go to school for one thing and then I'm like, this looks fun.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's always an interesting path. I think about that a lot. I went to school for journalism and I did that for a long time. Still do that on the side. I always did gravitate more to the industrial spaces and things like that. So I'm not totally shocked I ended up in transportation. But I mean the dream, of course, I feel like for many journalists is to write for the New York Times. But once you get out of college, you realize that that's not gonna actually happen for most everybody. So then what's the next dream? But
Yeah, or that there's 10 other things that could make you that happy and fulfilled,
Mhm.
right? I think for me, I kind of tend to I gravitate towards where there's a vacuum of oh, there's an opportunity here. This could really be something. And it's just sitting there. No one's doing anything with it. I will snag that opportunity. It's just in my nature. So even when I started at WSI, I was doing project management, supporting sales and marketing and the pricing team. Well, there was really not a marketing team at the time, but sales and pricing, I guess, in getting a better proposal process together, being able to turn them around faster, create better materials, and then realized we could be doing a lot more with marketing here. There isn't really a fully built out marketing department or program, and the supply chain space, it's not like we have a ton of really talented marketers in this space. A lot of them end up in the consumer marketing side of things. And so I'm like, I see an opportunity here, and I snagged it.
I love that. That's kind of how I've lived my life is I don't know what's going to come next. I don't really want to know what's going to come next. All I know is I want to be prepared for the opportunity so that I can take it. And that's just
Yes.
how I've gone. And so it's been a very crazy path. and I wouldn't know I definitely would have never anticipated what my steps would have been throughout that. But I just knew like
Mhm.
that's like if I'm unhappy in a job or something like that, I'd always be like, okay, how do I absorb every single thing I can from this role, this position, this company, so that when I take the next step, it's a step somewhere else that will make me happier, but I'll be more qualified or I'll have more skills or whatever that looks like. And so it seems that you kind of navigate that way too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, coming from a totally different field into this one, I really didn't know what to expect. Like, am I going to like this? Am I going to
Mhm.
want to stick with this long term? But I also have this philosophy that, like, everything I do it big. You see the reference?
Mhm.
Everything I do it big. So if I'm gonna try this and take a risk and like take this opportunity, I'm gonna go hard. So 4 years later, I'm still pretty committed, and like having a great time, building an awesome team. I feel really, really fortunate to have landed where I am for sure.
Awesome. And WSI recently launched Case. So now you're director of marketing for both, and Case is a new order fulfillment brand. And I would love to hear more about it and what that means for your team and the whole team at WSI and Case.
Yes, I'm so pumped. So pumped. This has been a huge project for us, and I'm extremely excited for all of the opportunities it will give for us in the future. So, when I started, WSI had done order fulfillment for years, like going way, way back. But like many other 3PLs, really stepped it up in the e-commerce space right around the pandemic. It was like everyone was like, we have an opportunity here. We already had things set up, so we're like, okay, let's really commit and invest some of our resources in this space, and make our marketing actually match the investments we're making in technology and all of these other areas. So I already knew from the beginning it was a little bit of a challenge, and I know that WSI is not the only one facing this, where you're trying to market e-commerce fulfillment services while you had for the last several decades really focused on that like industrial space and like the larger warehousing, bulk storage, freight brokerage. Small parcel and e-commerce fulfillment is a bit of a different beast and definitely a different audience and a different way you're going to need to market to them. So when WSI acquired Shipping Tree and then we made the decision to rebrand it, I was like, this is a great opportunity for us to try some things with this brand that the WSI voice wouldn't have quite been able to do as well. So we can have a unified company. We have, unified services, shared services that we can leverage, a unified network, but tailor our messaging with the different brands based on what the customer really wants and needs to hear. So very customer focused project, which it should be, and fun for me and my team.
And it can be a challenge. I love that you think it's fun, but part of that is the intrigue of the challenge to do it. I'm sure because doing new branding, launching a new brand, especially under a bigger brand, can present all kinds of challenges. So, what are some of the biggest things you've learned through the process?
Good question. Yeah, of course it was stressful. I'm not saying it was fun and easy. It was fun and hard. Would be cool to not do it again for a while. Like it's fine. Let's just but I think what's exciting about it is the getting to like create something. I've definitely always been a creative person. So being able to create something from scratch, and I'm also like an extreme extrovert, and a rebrand project is a very like collaborative project. Like you're not going to do it in a vacuum and have it be successful. Like you have to have the buy-in from the full senior leadership team. You have to get the buy-in of the rest of the employees. You want to build pride around the brand. You want to communicate the brand to your employees and your customers and your prospects in a smart way. And that challenge to me is fun and exciting. Some of the things that I have learned, one, and I already knew this, but it was like, now I'm really never going to forget it, that a brand is so much more than a name. And I
Mhm.
bring this up because we had a list of like 50 different names we could have used for this company. And if anyone's gone through this process before, you'll know like trademark is kind of a nightmare. Like buying the domain that like exactly fits the name of your company and is affordable, like that's a whole process. And, that was a little stressful. I'm not gonna lie. Like there were those moments where we're like, oh my gosh, we got so far with one concept and then it like falls through on the legal side. But realizing that we built so much of the brand without a name, and then we're able to find the name that was like, this is perfect, like this fits, and it all came together. But the name alone wasn't all of it.
Mhm.
The other thing, I made notes. Don't underestimate the time it takes to project manage stuff.
Mhm.
And I think people a lot of times will say, well, I'm not a project manager. But whether or not you have that title, like as a leader managing a project like this, like you have to project manage it. And
Mhm.
it's not a nuisance, it's a priority. So making sure that all of the people are doing the things that they're supposed to be doing, managing the timelines, managing expectations, really putting the time to communicate carefully and thoughtfully is worth the investment. And then, yeah, that was my third point, is that communication plan is key. It should not be an afterthought. It needs to be a priority. But I'm also
Mhm.
a little biased because in addition to being marketing director, my role includes corporate communications, internal comms. So I'm passionate about both.
I think that's really important. And I was just thinking about it is so much more than a name and it has to fit in with the other things too. Like I remember, so I've been executive director since November of 2021. And since then, like TMSA has had its brand, but we rebranded like the Elevate conference. That was always just annual conference. And so then it was like Elevate. And then I was like, okay, we want to do a podcast. So now that's on the move. And we have our newsletter that's moving forward. And we rebranded the award program, and that's Rising Stars, Mountain Movers, um, Trailblazers, and all of those. They all are different. They all have movement in them. I don't know if people have actually realized that to the degree that I have sat and thought about it. Like everything has some type of movement, even like our DEI committee that you serve on. The tree, like the committee, the name is just a name, right? It may evolve, it may change or whatever, but our icon of the tree, the roots are building down and the tree is building up. There's movement. That's why I approved there was like multiple iterations of that logo when we went through that. I'm like, I want the tree because the tree represents movement up and down, grounding yourself in a community and building yourself up. Like it is, there's so much thought behind it, and it's more than just a name, but how does it stand alone? How can it incorporate itself in all of the pieces? I
Yeah,
just don't
well,
know.
and even the awards, like I couldn't name all of them from memory, but I remember they have the same logo in
Mhm.
the background. You just changed the colors to represent the different categories, right? Like that kind of thing. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
mean, you'll notice too, if you look at the Kase website and the Kase logo mark and all of that, that the co-branded identity of WSI and Kase, like they're not the same, but they look like they belong together. They,
Yes.
signify that unity for sure.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Both, like you said, internal comms is also a passion. I feel like then your teams, like if there's people that are just at WSI, just at Case, or overlapping, they need to know how these things play together too. And so I love when those visual representations match that, because I think
Yeah.
there gets to be a lot of confusion both internally and externally when they don't. And you see that a lot with like acquisitions that acquire over and over and over and over, and then they don't work on any of the blending portions of that, which can get really tricky.
For sure. And I think I have to give a big shout out to our HR and organizational development teams at WSI, because they were incredibly collaborative with the marketing team, and our president, our senior leadership, in really thinking about how does this rebrand help us meet our goals, right? Like our growth and like our revenue goals, and how are we going to win new customers with this branding, but also how is this going to make our employees feel about the merging of the companies together under one culture? How does this represent who we are internally and the values that we live by? And How do we build, that employer marketing too? Like we forget sometimes, like you're not just marketing it externally. Like if you don't have your internal teams all like speaking the same language, wearing the same jersey, rooting for this, like it's going to be hard to get that externally. So I'm super proud of internally the work that we've done to really collaborate with all departments.
I think that's fantastic. I think too often the brand conversation only sits in marketing, but you have to have that buy-in. You have to, the senior leadership has to be there. And you're right. The whole goal is for the company to, at the end of the day, is to make money. So we continue to have a company, like that's what you need to do. So
business.
Yeah, it's business. Like that's the goal. And so understanding how all those pieces work together, having the buy-in from senior leadership all the way down to everyone in the company, remembering that the employees are a piece of that. I think it's really important. It sounds like that was how you guys navigated that, which is really cool.
Absolutely.
And obviously, being internal comms and also just talking through that culture and employees and things like that. I do want to talk about professional development a bit. And what are some of the best ways to engage and learn in the industry? So now, as you said, you've been here for 4 years. TMSA was one of the things you came to kind of learn more, but how have you navigated? What are some advice you have for other people trying to develop more?
Yeah, I was thinking about this question in advance of this interview, and I realized that what works for me is not going to work for everybody because I am a very social person. I'm social butterfly, and I learn like this, having conversations with people who I think know something more than I do, or better at something than I am, watching how someone does something, collaborating with someone. Some others might prefer, reading some professional development books or attending a webinar or something. I like the networking. Networking is a way that I learn. When I started in this industry, I had no network. I was brand new, right? And so I focused on developing the internal network in the company, like reaching out, introducing myself, trying to make some friends, go to some people that I could go to when, you're looking for the answer to something and you're like, I'm kind of embarrassed to ask, but I know I have 3 people who won't judge me for asking the question. Like developing those networks. Like I focused on that right away. But like my personal mission in life, I've done some work to identify this, and I know it's to build community. So I've done that as a social worker. I did that in the dance world. Now I'm doing it in the logistics space. Like if I'm building community, then I'm happy, right? I could do that in different functions. So right now I'm doing that through my marketing and communications work. But in order to build community, I have to meet people. I have to connect with people. And just meeting someone and shaking hands is like, that's not a connection. That's just an introduction. So when I joined IWLA. Well, WSI was already a member, but I was like, I'm going to get involved. Like there's a marketing special interest group. I'm signing. Finding out about TMSA, which I found out about through IWLA. And I was like, okay, I'm going to join. I'm going to attend the event, and I'm going to find that DEI committee, and I'm going to serve on it. That is what building community really felt like for me, because I didn't just meet people and introduce myself. We worked on stuff together. And through that work together, we developed better relationships. I've been able to be introduced to vendors that have been super helpful, like writers that can help with our content strategy, make connections with people that helped us with like lead gen campaigns. And it's been incredibly, incredibly valuable. Being invited to speak on things like this, I also think helps in my professional development, because even if I feel like, okay, I'm really confident in this topic, but I'm about to talk in front of a bunch of people about it. So I'm going to do that extra research, and I'm going to be really confident on this topic. Now, that's not going to work for everybody, but it's worked for me.
Yeah, I think that's really great advice. And even what I have been most surprised by, I think, doing this show, and I know this, but I wasn't thinking about it, is there's so many marketing directors that come on and they're like, whew, like at the end, they're like, okay, how was I? That was my first podcast I've ever done, or something like that, which has been, I'm like, oh yeah, because our jobs as marketers typically is to like push our president
Put
to
someone
like,
else in front of,
yeah,
yeah.
go do that. And we stand in the corner and just make sure they don't say anything terrible, you know? And so because that was definitely coming to TMSA and becoming the executive director, that was 100% the hardest shift for me. I was not a leader. I was not an executive leader. I was a director of marketing who did that. But I made sure other people went and talked. I made sure our content was great. Our booth looked great, all of those things. But I was not the thought leader. I would come to TMSA and I would speak there because I was the marketing person. So like, so I was professionally developing in TMSA too, but that wasn't a piece. And so suddenly, yes, like being seen as the leader and people noticing me in a room, it's like, oh, okay, like that's a whole different ball game now. And so, but that's been a really cool part of this podcast for me, is because I do think that marketing and salespeople have such perspective and such value and are thought leaders, and they are following trends and they're doing all these things that people outside of our little pocket might not realize how much they're actually doing. So I love giving
Mm.
a space and for them to share that here.
Yeah, it's amazing. Thanks for having me, by the way.
Oh, well, thanks for coming on. I'm excited. And so you mentioned that you volunteer here both at TMSA and IWLA. So what do you do in both of these spaces, and how have these opportunities then what have they brought to your career, and how do you serve? I think I just double asked the question. You volunteer in both places. What do you do there, and how does it bring you value to your career? That's a better way
Yeah.
to say it.
I volunteer in 3 places. So
Okay.
there's the show off. She's extra, okay? Oh man, try hard over here. So actually, I started with IWLA with the marketing SIG, attended the marketing workshop and kind of helped just pitch with like ideas for things we could do. Um, and one of the things that has helped me, I think, with that, or I should say, I kind of take advantage of it, right? Is I'm like, hey, if I'm going to volunteer to help plan this, I'm going to make sure that the topics that I want to hear about are on that agenda. So that's one thing, right? Like being able to come and say, hey, I want to know how other people are dealing with their budget struggles
Mhm.
right now. Can we hear from this person? Can we recruit this person to come speak? Can we, organize the schedule to include a roundtable discussion? Like I kind of got to help tailor the experience I get to have by influencing the schedule and the planning of the event. And then with the TMSA and working on the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, not only have I met a ton of really amazing people, but have also learned about some struggles that some of our peers and other companies in the industry are having that are similar to what we are having, or that, hey, we've been able to solve this, or they've been able to solve this, and can we share some tips with each other? A lot of it has been around like how we communicate these things, like how we talk about these things.
Mhm.
How do we get this message out in a way that's going to be really digestible, that won't put anybody off, and is really focused on like positive, uplifting, building, and improving. Upskilling, I think, is one of the terms that I've heard recently, our industry. And then also I went to the Women in Supply Chain Forum
Mhm.
and started to realize like, oh, hey, I know you because I met you at this other event. I know you, I met you at this other event. Got introduced to a couple different people, got introduced to Sarah Barnes Humphrey through TMSA. And now I actually also volunteer with Blended.
Oh, awesome. I love
Yeah, so
blending.
I'm the chair of the volunteer committee for the Blended Pledge, with a mission of bringing more diverse voices to industry stages and kind of breaking down barriers. So it's a lot of work. I'm not gonna lie. And it is volunteer, right? Like this is
Mhm.
like on top of my regular work. So I'm not gonna act like it's all easy peasy, but I if I did not have WSI today, I would be very sad. But I would also have, 30 other people that I've now made friendships with in these other areas that I know I could lean on for support and advice. And I wouldn't trade that. I would do it again. I would put in all the volunteer hours to also just have that feeling of like fulfillment, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, that's how I came to TMSA was as a member and getting involved. And it's where the passion comes and the people, um, because they become your real life friends. I
Mhm.
actually was looking the other day, like the people I talk to on a daily basis between like my friends and family. So many of them are TMSA people that just have, become a part of my real life too, which is
The
something really
Slack,
special. Yeah.
the Slack
Yeah.
is nice.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Yes, we have a TMSA Slack, and we do. Each committee has their own space, and so you can talk to your committees. You can also talk in the general spaces. I think it's really cool to be able to connect and network, and just oh hey, who's going to this industry show or who's doing this, and so
Mm.
it's, you said before about building a community, and that's really what we try to be and what we try to help our members be. So really excited about that. And we are, of course, thankful for all the work that you're putting in for us. And I do think having you volunteer in other places help us all grow together because then there's oh yeah, this is what people over in the more warehousing side are saying, and this is giving that feedback, which is great.
Yeah.
And
Well, and hey, you are going to be coming to speak at the IWLA marketing workshop,
I
and I'm
am.
pumped about that.
I am as well. So I am coming to be the keynote speaker at the IWLA Marketing Summit, which is July 10th through 11th in Orlando. I do have the IWLA website QR code right there for anyone that is interested in scanning. I'm really excited. I have heard about the IWLA Marketing Summit for the past couple years, and it just never, that time in July is typically when I either like have to like get a surgery or like I go on vacation. Like it's like 4 weeks after Elevate. And so it's like, okay, I've paid all my bills, I've read all the surveys, like I can close things out and take a week off work. So it just has not worked for the past couple of years. And they've asked me, but this I'm like, you know what? So we're going on spring break this year, hence why I will be gone for this week. And so I was like, oh, I will actually have July open this year. So let's talk about it.
Yay! It's
So
great.
I'm so excited. I have wanted to go for the past couple of years, but as part of that group, can you tell us more about this event, what people can expect from it?
Yeah, I really love it because it's always a smaller setting. So it's not like a big convention. It really is a workshop vibe. So I think in the past we've had like maybe 50 people, a lot more like small group discussions and like let's, do a case study and like really figure out how we would solve this. Just feels more intimate. And also speaking of like the value of doing these things and joining these organizations, this year I am bringing someone from my team and I was like, hey, you are a rock star. You should speak at this event. Like other people should hear what you have to say because you're amazing. And I'm pumped. So you'll be hearing from Mary Burko at this year's event on our content strategy. And I'm hoping that will also help her get some value out of the connections and the friendships too.
I love that. I love workshop style events. And that's, yes, like I have a part that's like speaking best practices for smaller marketing teams, how to maximize efficiencies, really lean
I
into
can't
the
wait.
tools that you have. And then also doing it as like a workshop and like being like, hey, like this is what we have going on. How would you use the situation, what would you do, all that kind of stuff. So like really walking people through it because I am a hands-on learner myself, so I
Mm,
like being able to, okay, let me sit and listen to what this person's saying, but how do I actually apply that?
yes,
And so I'm pretty pumped about it. I'm excited and honored to be able to do it and to be interested to lead that conversation. So I'm really excited and I'm
I can't wait. I can't wait for, I suggested we do a session on like your biggest marketing fails. Because we all have that story that we're like,
Mhm,
oh my gosh, that
mhm,
one time I thought I had the campaign running and I didn't, and or that
mhm.
one time when I ran ad copy and it was wrong. We always have so much to learn from those. I can't wait to
Mhm.
hear other people's
Yeah, I
mistakes.
mean, it's So it's honestly one of the reasons why I like to run the marketing and sales group, because anytime I feel like we make those blunders, like people just understand and they're like, we understand. Where do we need to go to now? Like it's more it's a more of an understanding group than I think other places, because
Well,
we've done that, like we one time we accidentally sent out, we were like reworking our workflows in HubSpot, and it sent out like a mass email that was supposed to go to like 20 people. It did not. It went to the entire database, and I'm like, cool, 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 cool. Okay. But
well, our
that's
work is so public. Like when
yeah.
you everything you do in like marketing communications, it's very like out there. You put something out, it's for like thousands of people to see it. Like you send an email, so it is like very, you're in the spotlight, and when you're in the spotlight, like sometimes people, you're not going to always be on point. We want to be on point as much as we can, but so much of like marketing also is experimentation.
Yeah.
And to experiment and only have success is like, that's not real life. Like you're going to
Right.
experiment, some things are going to work and some things are going to not. So I'm pumped to hear like, what are the other things people have tried and failed at? And maybe I don't have to try and fail because I'll learn from them.
Mhm. That's always like, if we like, we'll do a lot of like case study type sessions at our shows, and I'm always like, also put what you did and you had to adapt. Like, don't just put the wins in there, even if you don't want to like fully reveal the full loss, but at least like be like, when did you have to pivot something, or like did you have to change the ad copy because that wasn't working? Like, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's just as valuable of being like, hey, we did this and it was awesome. Okay, but like, when did you have to adjust the copy, or did you realize, oh, okay, this actually was terrible in email form, so we're going to stick to social,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. But how did you learn that? Because that's a piece of the puzzle too.
I have this practice. I like journaling, and every year at the end of the year, every year that I've worked at WSI, at the end of the year, I write like my reflection on the year. And it'll include like a summary of like, here's what our like marketing plan was for the year. Here's what I accomplished. Here's what I didn't accomplish. And it's like, was never meant for like anyone else's eyes but my own. So I'm just like, I had no idea what I was doing here. Like this was a mistake. Like, but it's been funny because I go back then and like read last year's learnings, and it's actually really encouraging because I can see the progression. I can look back and be like, actually, I was on point with this. I just needed to wait longer. Like, or well, I gave up on that idea too quick. I should try that again with this, change. And then I actually reported to our VP of sales and marketing for the first 3-ish years. And then we got a VP of marketing. So the role was split. And you know what? One of the first things I did is share that document with him. I was like, what do I have to lose? He's going to look all up in my SOPs anyways. Like he's going to look at all the historical data anyways. Like, here you go, buddy. I can tell you. Here's where I didn't know what I was doing. Here's where I do.
And this is what I've learned since, which is
Yes.
great.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much for all that you're doing here at TMSA and in the industry. I do have one last question that I ask everyone who comes on the show. And you've been pretty open and honest, so I'm actually curious where this question will go with you. But if you could go back in time and advise your younger self anything, personally or professionally, when would you go back to, and what would you tell her?
I think I would probably go back to college, Madi, and I would ask her to think about what she wants her actual like day-to-day life to feel like. I think I focused a lot when I was younger on like what am I passionate about, which is important, right? And where do I think I have great skills, which I think is important. And I don't know that I spent enough time thinking about like, yeah, but what do I actually want to be doing day to day, And I don't regret how my life turned out by any means, but I would have maybe cut myself a little more slack, I think, had I gone back to say, yeah, I want to spend more of my time, being creative. I want to spend more of my time, or I know that I want to get home and have dinner with my family. Like that's a priority. I should think about that when I'm making a career decision, right? That kind of stuff. But frankly, like knowing me, even if like future Madi showed up and was like, girl, you need to do this and this and this, I'd be like, don't tell me what to do. I'm going to figure it out for myself. And then I would have just done what I want to do anyway.
Yeah, sometimes we have to learn things the hard way, or we don't realize it what we want or need. Like it took me a long time to be like, you should just never work in an office. It does not work for you. Period. Okay, I accept that now.
That was me going into social work. I'm like, I'm empathetic. I connect with people. I'm passionate about helping people. It's like, okay, but that means every day you're going to be seeing people be really sad. Every day you're going to be around people who are going through a really hard time. And then I was like, oh, like, yeah, I don't know if I can do that. I'm going to go home very sad every day.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm glad that you have found your path into logistics because it is fun having you around. And I'm excited for Elevate to be coming up June 8th through 10th. And then the IWL marketing is the next month, July 10th through 11th. So all exciting things coming up. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Happy to have you.
Thank you. It's nice chatting with you. Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Bye.